Bills Mafia. We know there's only one topic every day, all Bills all the time. And now Matt Bove and Sal Capaccio are going really deep, talking Bills all year long, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
A significant, and I would say even what might qualify as an historic day in Buffalo Bills history. The Buffalo Bills announcing the release of several high-profile core players over this last 7-year run that they've had under Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. And that's why we're here to talk about it on what we can call an emergency. It's always game day in Buffalo podcast. Sal Capaccio with Matt Bove. Matt literally just got off the television talking about this, and we had to throw this together because, Matt, it is a significant day, and I don't think it's an understatement to say it's a historic day. Not for necessarily great reasons, obviously, but because of the magnitude.
Yeah, what I said, it was an end of an era, right? I think of this Bills team starting this era in 2017 up until their season just ended. It closes the door on that time for the Buffalo Bills. I think of the mainstays of that team being, of course, Josh Allen, but guys like Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Mitch Morse, you can throw into that mix. We don't have a definite answer on Micah Hyde as of right now. The way today has gone, we will probably learn news at some point while we're recording this. I admittedly shocked. I'm shocked with how all of this happened today. I'm not shocked that a lot of it happened. I'm just shocked that it happened back to back to back to back. This was a crazy afternoon for the Bills.
I think from a public relations standpoint, from Bill's operational standpoint, I agree with you that it's like, it was just shocking when it happened, but I understand why they would do this all at once and say, we got to tear the Band-Aids off here from the salary cap, and we're just going to do it. And it's out there and we don't have to deal with it, piece by piece, and say these goodbyes over the next few days. And let's face it, everybody, the new league year starts on March 13th. The team has to be under the salary cap by then. They can start negotiating with free agents in 5 days. We sit here on March 6th. That starts on March 11th. I agree with you. But when you say shocking, let's kind of go through these, how shocking they were, what they mean to the organization going forward. There's no particular order I want to go here. So I'll just start with some of the bigger names first, but no particular order. Let's start with Jordan Poyer. Not much of a surprise that they released Jordan Poyer. The talk about the safeties, Poyer and Hyde, what they meant. The Brandon Beane saying they were going to get younger at some positions. Squarely was in the crosshairs, I think, right there. There was an outside chance. I think some people felt that Poyer could remain on the roster for what he was able to do towards the end of the year last year, but I never really got the sense that they were going to bring him back.
Yeah, I think that just given how much he was going to cost to play a role that is different than an every down safety role, because it felt like that was the way that they were trending, the move should not be shocking. Of the moves they made today, maybe besides like Deontay Hardy or maybe Saran Neal, it's probably the least surprising news that they made. But that being said, it's not insignificant. Jordan Poyer has meant a lot to this team since he stepped foot in that door in 2017. I do, though, think given what we've seen from around the league with all of the safeties who seem like they are available now on the open market, the Bills will be able to get another guy for a cheaper contract than Jordan Poyer was going to command. Well, it's not like he was going to command it. He had it. He had 1 year left on his deal. So them moving on from Jordan Poyer tells me they think that they can get somebody at least close to his skill level for a cheaper deal.
Is Jordan Poyer a Bills Wall of Famer?
Ooh, that's a great question. He might be. Of this era, there are a few. I mean, obviously, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are kind of in a league of their own. I think they might be Hall of Famers. They're in the conversation. It's funny, though, because they're so synonymous with each other. Poyer, Hyde, Hyde, Poyer. I wonder if there's a way you could
put them up together.
Them.
Put them up together. There's not going to be a Wall of Fame. I don't think at the new stadium there's going to be like these monuments to kind of honor the greats of the past. But I would say, hey, put them on a monument together.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe on the next episode of the podcast, we can talk about the stadium experience and we can talk about all that stuff because today's the day you guys can start talking about it. But we got other business to attend to here. Let me ask you this, though, as one last thought, is specifically with the safeties. Because we have not heard anything from Micah Hyde yet, and Micah Hyde doesn't have a contract, is there any chance that Micah Hyde is the guy they bring back to try and have a little continuity on a super team-friendly deal? Or is this definitely mean they are turning the page on them as a pair?
I would put the percentage at less than 10%, maybe less than 5% that Micah Hyde is back. I would never rule it out because you don't know what happens with him saying if he wants to come back and he wants to give it one last run and I'll play for a real small salary and the team feels he can help transition something. But I just feel like this is it. I've never had the sense that he was going to come back. And I think this pushes me more to that.
But let me ask you this, though, and I agree with you. I don't think he's coming back. With everything we learned today, why didn't we learn that yet? Why haven't we learned that Micah Hyde is either retiring or is going to basically leave?
Because he's not under contract. There's no reason to learn anything. He's a pending free agent. The team doesn't have to say anything about him.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's the same reason we're not learning anything about any other pending free agent today. He's not under contract, so they don't have to make an official announcement or release. So when Micah Hyde's ready to say he's retired, he can do that. Or March 13th comes and he just becomes a free agent. That's kind of how it works there. Jordan Poyer will cost the Bills $2 million in dead cap money. I believe they say $5 million, a little bit more than that, with his release. And then comes another really, really tough one, Tre'Davious White. Now, the Bills have not officially announced Tre'Davious White's release. It was reported by Adam Schefter that he would be released. I can confirm that is going to happen. It will be a June 1st cut. I'm sure you can too. So we know that's coming. It'll be post June 1st cut. So what that means, so I'll explain it to everybody here. Post June 1st cut means on June 1st, Tre'Davious White his salary will officially come off the Bills' books. However, because they wait till June 1st, they will not have to take out a full cap hit this year. It will be $6 million in dead cap money this year, $4 million next year. That's why you make it a June 1st cut to spread that out. However, that said, Matt, they will not get the $10 million cap relief until June 1st. They got to carry a salary cap charge until then. They don't see the $10 million until then. All of that said, that's the financials. There's a person here in Tre'Davious White who was the first draft pick of Sean McDermott back in 2017, who's meant a lot to this organization and this community that's gone now.
Yeah, I just keep thinking of the lasting picture of him on the field when he picks up his helmet and he throws it behind him in frustration in that game against the Dolphins back on the first day of October or very early in October. I just think that Josh Allen is in a league of his own. Same thing with Stephon Diggs, but Trey White is kind of the face of the turnaround to me. Honestly, same thing with Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde and some of those other guys, but Trey White for a couple of years was their best player. Like in 2019, when Josh Allen was starting to trend in the right direction, that was a team that was led by their defense to the playoffs, and their best player that year was Tre'Davious White. And then the next year, once again, a rock-solid player, and he was all the way up until that injury on Thanksgiving in 2021, and it just feels like Bills fans and Tre'Davious White were robbed of what could have been because we thought we would see Tre'Davious White and Von Miller and Matt Milano and all of those guys out on the field together. And I believe there was only one game when those three players suited up together. I think it was only one game, and it was the Detroit Thanksgiving game until Von Miller got hurt. So it's crazy how it played itself out because there are a few people who have meant more for the Bills in their turnaround than Trey.
No doubt about it. If you take them two as a whole in the secondary and Micah Hyde, I mean, what they've meant to this organization to be together for 7 years as a group. Hyde and Poyer, those two safeties coming in at the same time with Sean McDermott when he just gets the job right after that, a couple months later, and then Tre'Davious White, the draft pick. You could make an argument that Tre'Davious White is one of the better draft picks of all time for the Buffalo Bills, considering what he's meant to this team. And you could certainly make an argument that Hyde and Poyer are two of the better free agent signings that this team has ever had. That's how much they've meant to this organization. And obviously fan favorites, a lot of them. Very, very tough day for Bills Mafia to say goodbye to Jordan Poyer and Tre'Davious White and probably Micah Hyde, even though, as you pointed out, not necessarily we learned that today. And then go ahead.
No, just while we're on the Trey White thing, when the Jordan Poyer news happened, because there were so many different things that happened, wasn't there also a report of a Rasul Douglas contract restructure?
There's someone has. I don't know who did it. I don't know who has reported it, but someone has reported some sort of restructure on Russell Douglas, and I don't know. I looked for it, I couldn't find it, but I do think it's out there. I've seen it, but I don't know the official
Schefter.
reporter who did
The
it. Schefter did.
Schefter.
Okay,
The
thank you.
Bills are restructuring cornerback Russell
There you go.
Douglas to save $2.5 million.
There you go.
So I don't think that it's a ruled out that they couldn't potentially sign him to a contract extension to be one of their corners for the next several years. But I think we know this
But
year.
he didn't say that was an extension. He just said a
No,
restructure.
no. It's a restructure. I'm just saying down
The
the
reason
road.
why I'm asking is because then what does that look like? Because he only has 1 year left. My guess is they're adding void years to the deal. That's all it is then.
Yes. So I think this year it'll be Russell Douglas and it'll be Christian Benford. And then we have no idea who will play safety. But I think that it's a pretty safe bet at this point to say, okay, those are going to be your two guys at cornerback. And it makes sense, right? Like, given the injury that Trey is coming back from and how much money he was going to make, like, the move makes sense, but I think it's an emotional one for Bills fans.
No doubt. Everything you said is right. It's what people say, why would they release Tre'Davious White? People say, well, he's making a lot of money. He's coming off the injury, and the two guys that played last year did really well. And even if he comes back, what's the spot for him? Is he the starter? Is he not? How much money he's making? It all matters. The one that might have been the most surprising to me in totality is Mitch Morse. And the reason why for me is they just traded Ryan Bates right after we got finished recording, by the way, when I said they could release Ryan Bates. They trade him. That to me signified, okay, they're all in on Mitch Morse. He's not going anywhere. They really like Alec Anderson. It's not about Bates versus Morse. It's about Bates versus Anderson. Then all of a sudden you hear that they release Mitch Morse, which is going to save them another, $8 million in salary cap space. I got to go back and look at some of these numbers today, what that exactly does. That to me is why. Now, it would have been surprising if a month ago we heard that Bills would do this. To me, it was more surprising because of the Bates trade that we heard this. Now, on the heels of that, I can tell you what I've learned is Connor McGovern is going to be the Bills starting center in 2024, barring any unforeseen circumstances. And that will open the door for David Edwards, who signed a 2-year contract extension, to become the team's starting left guard next year. So your starting interior next year should be, as of right now, McGovern at center. And then you have Cyrus Torrence on the right and David Edwards on the left.
Yeah, I think that this also opens up the possibility. I know they signed David Edwards to a contract. I know they've got a lot of things that they need. I think it opens up a possibility of them maybe using a day 2 draft pick on an offensive lineman. Maybe that's a center. Maybe that's a guard. It really worked out, obviously, last year with Osiris Torrance. You have a little bit of flexibility there. I do think, though, the one that shocked me today was Mitch Morse. None of the other moves, I think, shocked me. The fact that they all happened on the same day was really surprising, but the Mitch Morse one shocked me. I just don't understand. I get it's a money thing. I just don't understand how they thought he could be the one. I mean, I don't know.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
He was really good last year, and he's got 1 year left. I get it. It's an older center with a concussion history, so they're moving on from that. I get that. But for how good the offensive line was last year in comparison, I just don't get how they would be like, okay, we're going to let you go with 1 year left on your deal. The other ones make total sense to me. The Mitch Morse one does not.
Well, I agree with you. I'm very surprised. And in fact, I said he was more of an extension candidate than a cut candidate, right? I mean, I thought that they could keep him around even longer, lower the cap hit. But I understand the move from their standpoint, which is, again, I'll go back to Matt. They feel really good about the guys they have on that line. And let's remember, going into before today, they had 11 guys on their offensive line, all under contract. This is not a situation where they're trying to replenish an offensive line. They have young players they believe in. Alec Anderson, Ryan Vandermark, Richard Garage, who's obviously in the practice squad. I'm not saying these guys are going to take spots, but Anderson and Vandermark, certainly. They really like them. And then they have David Edwards, who can fill in, and Connor McGovern, who's very flexible. So from that standpoint, I don't think they necessarily wanted to do it, but I understand why they would think so. Even though I agree with you, I'm surprised, and it's the most shocking one. I didn't think it would happen, but from looking at it from that lens, I can understand it more.
No, there's no chance, because a lot of people, I don't think there is. I just want to get your take on this. There's a lot of people on social media who think that they made this move to try and bring him back on a cheaper deal down the road. I don't think that's happening. I think that they are parting ways with Mitch Morse, and he's going to go sign with another team.
What would he do if he came back? He's not going to be the starting center. That's Connor McGovern. I'm telling you that Connor McGovern's going to be the starting center next year. So so to answer anybody's question who thinks that, unless Mitch Morse says I'll back up Connor McGovern for a veteran minimum deal, I don't see how that would happen.
No chance.
That's exactly right. So no.
Doesn't it always feel, it was always explained to me once, because I know with the offensive line, you want to have your best 5 guys out there. And I know that there's a lot of different versatility with positions and all of the different things that they can do with guys like Connor McGovern, with Ryan Bates, with David Edwards, etc. It just feels like to me, you could do better than just putting David Edwards in as your guard and moving Connor McGovern was a really good guard. So why not just keep him at guard and then replace Mitch Morse? If you're going to move on from Mitch Morse, why take him out of a position where he was really talented last year and then have to figure out basically 2 positions?
I'm generally with you on things like this. Like I agree. Like you're moving 2 spots and not 1. I don't disagree. I would give you what they would think here, which is Connor McGovern's very flexible. Connor McGovern played some fullback for the Dallas Cowboys. He played, he's played everywhere. So I think they're very comfortable with that. And David Edwards was a starting guard for a Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams team. At least he was. I don't know if he was that year, but he was a starting guard in the Rams. So I think that's your answer, right? I'm with you on that. Like I always say, hey, don't screw around 2 positions if you need to kind of do something at 1. But I feel that they feel like they're not really doing that by the depth they have and what they can do with these guys. But Mitch Morse, just a really good Buffalo Bill, and someone Josh Allen's now going to have his hands, under for the foreseeable future here. Okay.
Who's going to play tight end now that David Edwards is going to play guard?
Who's the extra guy? Well, I'll give you one. You ready? If he recovers from injury, Tommy Doyle, the man who caught a touchdown pass against the New England Patriots.
You know what's funny is I always forget about Tommy Doyle. Like, just because of the injuries. That's what I mean. I always forget. You think about Vandermark, you think about Alec Anderson. Obviously, we thought about David Edwards prior to the news of the day. I just always forget that Tommy Doyle is still there. But what's he had now? 2 season-ending injuries?
Yeah, I don't know. And actually, to me, he'd be a release candidate himself, because you could save over like $1.5 million by releasing him, and he has played 1 game in 2 years. I mean, unless they really feel he's cheap. But, you could save some money. So to me, that might be a guy, they will add, like you said. I don't know if it'd be day 2, but they could, and they'll add at some point. They have 90 players, that they can bring to training camp. Okay. A couple other guys who were released by the Bills officially. This one kind of hurts for me because I was always a fan of his and his game and what he was able to do to stay in the league, to transition himself. Saran Neal. Saran Neal, to me, has been one of the better special teams players in the league over the last several years. And I know that he's not like some, you don't feel really comfortable with him playing defense. I understand that. But I also don't think he killed the team when he had to play defense the last couple of years. There was one game against the Jets, I think last year, he came in, he had 3 pass breakups in 1 game and had an outstanding game. He wasn't a guy you wanted to rely on all the time. He was a backup, and he had trouble in zone defenses. He was a nickel safety. He didn't have a true position. But he was a good Buffalo Bill over the last several years.
I agree with everything you said, but here's the one counterpoint that I have, and maybe I'm being a little bit too aggressive. This is not meant to be a stray at Saran Neal. Over the course of the last several years, they have had special teams specialists, basically guys that just play special teams. There's rare instances where they don't, but Saran Neal, Tywan Jones, Tyler Matakevich, there's a couple other guys. Well, the special teams has kind of fallen short in a lot of big moments for this team. So when we talk about these specialists, if you're going to have those guys on your roster and they're going to be making at least noticeable money, you better not have those breakdowns that they have had. So that's why I'm like, okay, I understand it. Cam Lewis, you can get back. Well, Cam Lewis might be a starting safety next year. Who knows? But why can't Cam Lewis just do that, right? Like, I don't know. You gave up some big returns last year. You had some blunders on special teams. Like, somebody's got to be held accountable for that. And we thought it might be the coaching, but it hasn't been up to this point. So now they're going to try and probably do a lot more different stuff with their personnel. And
I know you're not saying this, but I want to be clear. I know you're not saying that it's Saran Neal's fault, but he's making a lot of money. He's one of those core special teamers. And you're right. Everything you said is it's a great point to make about, how that group has formed, but they're going to have core special teamers again, right? Every team does. Heck, the New England Patriots had maybe more core special teamers in their Super Bowl years than any team. They had like 6 guys that played just special teams. And nobody seemed to complain about that. It's always weird to me when Bills fans go, well, McDermott always wants to use guys just for special teams. Every team does that. But you're right, Matt. Maybe it's time for new guys like that. Maybe it's time for new blood. Tyler Matakevich is going to be a free agent. Do they re-sign him? I don't know. You brought it up. Cam Lewis, and he'll have a bigger role. DeMar Hamlin is a guy like that, although he's on a rookie contract. There's always these just core special teams guys. But folks, let me tell you, every team does this. Good teams, bad teams, every team has a few guys. And the Bills do put a premium on it by paying some of them, like they did Saran Neal. And now that obviously he's been released, he would be one, Matt. He would be one that maybe sometime in the summer he doesn't get what's out there and he comes back to the Bills.
Okay, that's fair. And that would be you're totally open to that, because I think you do like him in the role and he's got familiarity there. But that's got to be one where it's a significant, and it would be, given what we're talking about, where he's got to make half basically what he made before. Because if they're trying to pinch all these pennies with the moves that they're making, you can't have that guy on the books for whatever it was, $3 million or whatever his contract was.
Okay, Deontay Hardy had one of the more memorable plays for the Buffalo Bills in 2023. The
special teams play.
Speaking of core special teamers, by the way, we just said how they didn't live up, but Hardy didn't live up to what we thought he'd be on offense, but he became a core special teamer. He was a return man. He winds up with a huge 96-yard punt return against the Miami Dolphins. And I think it was 96 or was 94. I think it was 96, right? And helps them win their 4th straight AFC East Division crown. So we'll always have that here in Buffalo, but man, you just couldn't live with the salary he nor Nyheim Hines was making, who also was a return man, and the Bills made it official, but we already knew that was going to happen. But both Hardy and Hines now no longer on the roster.
You want to hear a funny little anecdote? So I'm on my final week of paternity leave because our baby turns 1 next week. So I took the week off. And one of the things that I had, scheduled was I was a guest speaker for a media class at Clemson University today. And one of the kids at Clemson who was in the class was a big Miami Dolphins fan that I found out. And as all these moves are happening.
Wait, is this why you're wearing an orange hoodie today? Did you?
No. I just happen to have orange on. So they cut Deontay Hardy while I'm on a call with this class, and then the professor 10 minutes later is like, oh yeah, this kid is a huge Miami Dolphins fan, and he was just excited when he saw the news about Deontay Hardy. And I'm like, yeah, if there was one fan base that probably wants to see that guy gone, it would be the Miami Dolphins, because he did make that huge play that basically won them an AFC East title. But at the same time, a lot of money, and if you're trying to save money, he never fit into the offense like they thought he was going to. And I also think it's become pretty clear that Khalil Shakir is kind of going to be that guy moving forward. And it's probably a little easier and cheaper to just go find somebody to return kicks than have to pay him or Nyheim Hines. That was also finalized today that they moved on from Nyheim Hines.
Yeah, for sure. All right. The Bills continued their cost cutting by restructuring Von Miller's contract. That is from Field Yates just moments before we came on the air here or on this podcast to record this podcast. So the way it looks from what Ian Rappaport reported, he's moving from $17 million. Let me just kind of put this back out. Let me just how he did this.
Yeah.
He's moving from here we go. 17.1 base salary to $1.5 million, say base salary, but they're giving a $7 million signing bonus. That'll spread out then over the life of the contract. And so that's $8.5 million he'll make this year, but 1.5 base, $7 million signing bonus, and reachable incentives to get him back to 17 and higher to 20 where he was before. So essentially what the Bills are doing is clearing another $8 million in salary cap space this year, which gets them now a lot closer to where they need to be by March 13th at 4 p.m.
I mean, this is just a straight Von Miller took a pay cut to help the Bills.
Looks like it, for sure.
Right? Based off of everything you just said, they went to Von Miller and they were like, dude, you got to restructure. You got to do something, or else we're going to have to probably move on, even with all of that dead cap that they would have taken on. And I think he was just like, I want to be here. I still think we can win. That's from looking at the numbers, that is just an absolute straight up Von Miller doing a solid for the Buffalo Bills and taking a pay cut, right?
Well, doing a solid, but I also wonder, Matt, put yourself, and I think you're right, but if you go to Von Miller and say that, he's probably thinking, all right, then I'll still get more than I would if they cut me. I'm not getting even close to that. Not getting close to $9 million this year on the open market, which is what I'm still going to make in base salary plus signing bonus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think that it probably makes a little bit of sense for both sides. Also, Von Miller
Yep.
has made a lot of money in his NFL career, so maybe taking that contract is a little bit more enticing of just guaranteeing yourself a little bit more money as opposed to seeing how it all plays out. But I mean, this is of the things today, this is the one that helps the Bills the
Yes.
most in the short term. Like they went today, there's been way too many moving parts for us to tell you this is how much money the Bills are still over the cap. But it's going to be close. Like right at this point, it is probably pretty close that the Bills are either cap compliant or very close to being
Yes.
cap compliant. And they still haven't, at least to our knowledge, done a Josh Allen restructure, which seems like it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if it happens; it's a matter of
Even
when it
with all
happens.
these moves, it's going to happen because they need money to spend still, even if you get to the cap space.
This is a little bit. This is a little bit more big picture. We can circle back if we need to, but I read today all the moves that they made as a way for them to clean up their books a little bit long term, but also a way of giving themselves a bit more flexibility once free agency opens. These were not moves to me just to get cap compliant. These were moves to me
Yes, I agree.
that give them a little bit of like, oh, we really like that safety out there, or we really like this defensive tackle, or whatever it happens to be. Like, I don't think that they're going to go do Christian Wilkins or, some other crazy move, but I bet they bring back Daquan Jones, and I bet they bring back one of the better safeties on the market. And I bet they go and they try and get a Curtis Samuel or like that level player because they should have a little bit of wiggle room here.
Okay, it reminds me of your conversation with Brandon Bean, and I said to
Mhm.
you, "Boy, he seems a lot more optimistic about the salary cap than we make it out to be." And he's like, "Yeah, I'd call it about a 5 or whatever the number he gave you, 5, 6, and
Yeah.
not a 1. It's not a 10. We're the situation." I mean, he obviously knew these things were coming, but I agree with you. It's not just getting cap compliant. It's we're gonna have some room to make some moves. All right, before I get into the next one, do you think there's any chance this also could mean they would bring Gabe Davis back?
No, I don't. I don't think that they would make this many moves. Knowing what Gabe Davis market value is, I jokingly tweeted on Tuesday, whatever day it is now. I tweeted, Michael Pittman gets tagged and stays in Indy. Mike Evans gets a contract extension, stays in Tampa. T. Higgins gets tagged, stays in Cincinnati. Gabe Davis is going to get paid. At this point, I am operating. It's basically Gabe Davis and what? Odell Beckham and Darnell Mooney. Those are like the
I mean,
big guys.
no, I think number 1 is Calvin Ridley now.
Okay, Calvin Ridley. Yes,
Calvin
Calvin
Ridley,
Ridley is
Darnell Mooney,
Calvin Ridley
Curtis
is the top
Samuel, as
guy.
you mentioned, Gabe Davis. I mean, it depends on your flair, but no, I don't disagree. But look at there's a theme going on here. These teams are keeping these wide receivers. I still think there's a chance. I think it's unlikely. I'll say that. I
Uh-huh.
don't think it's a 0 chance that Gabe Davis is back in Buffalo. I think it depends on how the deal is structured because look what happened with Mike Evans. 2 years, 56. It's not that. He's getting 35 guaranteed. It's like 2 years, 41, 42. So he's getting 21 million, which is still significant, but it's not the 26 million that they present it to be. It's how these deals are structured that matter.
Yeah, but I mean, at that point, if he's actually getting $21 million, what is Gabe Davis getting?
I don't know.
14, 15?
I'd be really surprised if Gabe Davis got that much. Now, they may whoever he signs with may present it as that much
Yeah.
based on but it won't be actually getting that much and it'll be a lot more of the well, it's really only an $11 million deal.
What is more likely? The Bills go and bring back Gabe Davis, or they go get one of the quote bigger name safeties that are on the market.
More likely?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good question.
Like
I
I
keep
think
thinking
it's
about
the
what they said
safety.
about Gabe Davis. I keep thinking about what they said about safety as far as like getting a guy who's under the radar. But I would still say safety. But they really they need that's a really pivotal spot for them in their
Uh-huh.
defense. And I think that they know after losing Hyde and Poyer, we think Hyde, how important that is. So I would say safety.
Is there any big name? I say big name with air quotes here. Free agent that you could see the Bills, making a run for?
I don't know. I have to look at the list. I've been so thinking about all these things today they've done.
Okay,
I
like
guess could they make a run at Calvin Ridley? I think it would cost too much.
uh,
Yeah, I don't know. Big name.
Christian
Christian
Wilkins.
Wilkins, maybe. But might cost a lot, but I've thought about that. I've thought about that for the Bills.
Uh-huh. You mentioned Christian Wilkins and Ed Oliver playing next to each other.
I know. Hey, Matt, let's move on to something else the Bills did today. They brought back Matt Hawk. He was the
Oh
punter in
yeah,
2021. And they
yeah.
announced that, which is interesting because Sam Martin's still under contract, by the way. Sam Martin is still actually on the roster. So I guess we're having a good old punt battle. I don't know, going on in the summer.
Yeah, I didn't even see that. You're breaking this news to me as we're on
Oh,
this
yeah.
podcast. I didn't even see that. I mean,
They
there was a lot of
re-signed
stuff
Matt Hawk.
There was a lot of stuff happening today. So, really?
Yes, sir. They have two
Why?
punters.
Why? Why did they sign?
Well, I would think that obviously they liked the job he did when he was in Buffalo, and then they didn't necessarily love the job Sam Martin did, and we'll see. And here, I'll give you one. I know I hate talking like this, folks. I hate it, but it is true. Who didn't have a very good year this year? Tyler Bass. How much do the
Yeah,
Bills care about the operation of holding and what that might have meant for Tyler Bass?
I
Matt Hawk
know
is
you.
considered an elite holder. I'm not trying to joke. That is, he
I,
is. He is considered. Matt, and I know you're going to laugh at me. I'm telling you, folks. I'm
I'm
not
not.
saying that that's how I should do it. What I'm telling you is the Bills care about stuff like that, big time.
I'm not discrediting. I totally believe that they
Right.
care about that.
Yes.
But Tyler Bass just got a contract extension last year. Go make kicks. I do not care who is holding the ball for you. You were paid to make the kick. So I know that
Ooh.
you could think the process needs to be better, but come on. Tyler Bass had a great September last year and then was
I'll meet you in
pretty.
the middle. I'll meet you in the middle. It matters. Corey Bajorquez was a
Uh-huh.
horrible holder in the sense of being a holder.
Yeah.
And that was proven kind of when he went to Green Bay and their kicker had the worst year of his career after being there a
I
long
know.
time.
Well, okay, but here, because I'm a sicko and I know a lot of other people are as well, I've been up with the baby every day. And every day I have just gone back and watched a different Bills game from this past season. Just
I
not like
love
the
that. I
entire
love that.
not the entire game, but I just go back and I watch to try and just like because some of the stuff you just completely block out.
Yep.
The other day was the Eagles game. And I'm sitting there and my general theme from the game is first off, how did they lose that game? But
Yep.
the second thing is Jake Elliott made a 59-yard kick in a monsoon at the end of the game to
Amazing.
force overtime. In that game, Tyler Bass had a bad kick that was blocked because it was a line drive, and then he missed another kick. That's not even talking about the wide right at the end of the season in the playoffs. Like, didn't he miss a kick in the Steelers game too? In the playoff game?
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah, I have to go
Yeah,
back and look. But I just thought of it. You said, why would they sign Matt Hawk? I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I think that might be a reason why, because Tyler Bass did not have a good year. He was very inconsistent, and I wonder if that had something to do with it in their mind. All right,
Isn't
more
that
things.
why they drafted Matt Ariza? Because they weren't happy with Matt Hawk?
Yes, punting wise, but Matt Ariza.
Yes.
What? Remember yes, but
The
remember
holding.
remember the
stuff.
talk. It was he better be able to hold. He better be able to hold. He better be able to hold. That was the talk that year, and then he did, and it was fine. So yeah, that's exactly right. All right, two more things. Number one, our buddy Tim Graham is reporting Mitch Trubisky and the Bills are set for a reunion. This has since been backed up by other various reports. And I'm going to tell you, for the first time in history, Matt Bove, the I saw player X at the airport actually seems to be true because people were saying they saw Mitch Trubisky at the airport.
Oh, no kidding. Really?
Yes.
Okay. Well, so he's going to Duff's and he's going to get wings
Right.
at Duff's.
Yes.
And then he is going to be spotted somewhere else.
It's
I will
amazing.
say, not to toot my own horn, but I'm going to toot my own horn. Who said this a couple weeks ago?
You right there.
Matt
You.
Bove said it.
All right,
a
I'll take
couple weeks
the
ago.
Ryan Bates cred. You take
You got the Ryan.
Mr.
You get the.
cred.
You
Mr.
get the
Trubisky.
Ryan Bates victory lap. I'm taking the
got
Mitch Trubisky
Good job,
victory
buddy.
lap.
You got
It was an educated guess, the way I'll basically say it here. But yeah, I think that it makes a ton of sense once he was released by the Steelers. I think the weird thing here is that Josh Allen and Kyle Allen are very good friends. So this is pretty much closing the door on Kyle Allen returning because Mitch Trubisky is not going to get paid a ton of money, but he's going to get paid probably backup quarterback money. And I think that for their third quarterback, they'll just kind of do whatever. So I just think that, yeah, this makes a lot of sense.
Some other Bills news I reported this morning. Mike Shula's contract expired. The Bills did not retain him. Matt, it seems like they're all in on whatever what Joe Brady wants to do, right? I mean, Mike Shula was here for a couple of years. Joe Brady's now the new offensive coordinator, obviously. There's a couple assistants surrounding him. Then feels like, and obviously Ronald Curry came aboard. So senior offensive assistant was the job Mike Shula did. And yes, the former Alabama head coach was an assistant on the Bills, in case you didn't know that. But as I reported earlier on Wednesday, he will not be retained with his contract expiring. All right. I got one more thing for you, unless you have anything else on all this stuff we talked about.
Is your one more thing Bills?
No, it's Casey Middlestat.
Yeah,
and it's also, how about the Vegas Knights making moves left and right? They just acquired Noah Hannafin as we're talking on the air here, which is wild.
Yeah, I've got the game on in the background, and I just saw
there you
Elliot
go.
Friedman pop on TV and basically break the news on live television.
Okay, but let's focus on the Sabres here. Trade deadline comes up on Friday, and just your thoughts on moving on from Casey Middlestat for Byron. I'm sorry,
Bowen Byram.
Bowen Byram. I keep doing it in reverse. Bowen Byram.
No, it's okay. At like 2:00, I thought that was going to be the big sports news in Western New York for the day.
Right.
And man, did that I think it was a 15-second mention at the end of sports at 6:00 because there were so many other things going on. I am higher on Casey Middlestat than most people. I think the Sabres will miss him, but I also understand the move, and I'm also appreciative that Kevin Adams is realizing that they needed a change and that he's got to make a risky move. This is a little bit of a risky move because Bowen Byram is a super talented player, but hasn't really lived up to the potential since his early part of his career when he helped Colorado win a Stanley Cup. So I think that he is absolutely now the Sabres' third best defenseman. So no questions asked. He is their third best defenseman, which is a good thing. I just don't know how much they're going to miss Casey Middlestat because I don't know if those other guys are going to be able to step into that role. In the short term, those guys are Peyton Krebs and maybe somebody else in Rochester at the moment. In the long term, those guys are Matt Savoy, Noah Ostlund, some of the other younger players that they've drafted. But if they're not moving Tage and if they're not moving Dylan Cousins, they needed to move a center, and it makes sense that they would flip one for a defenseman. I just thought it would be a guy who shoots right-handed and not left-handed.
Are you concerned about the concussion history of Byram?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I saw a quote out there where he said, like, every day I wake up is a blessing or something. And
Without a headache.
Without a headache. So, it's sure it's true, but to hear a 22-year-old say that is a little bit concerning, but there's always risk associated with this. So if you weren't ready to give Casey Middlestat $6, $7, $8 million a year, flip him for the best player that you can. And I like that they're making a hockey move. And I also think that now what I actually think is going to happen is I think they're going to put Byram on the left side and put either Dahlin or Power on the right side. And then you're going to have a really solid first pair. What they'll probably do is they'll probably do like Dahlin, Yoki Haru, and then Power, Byram, and then Clifton Samuelson. Those will probably be their pairs next year, which is significantly better than what they've had in the past.
Come for the historic Bills news. Stay for the Sabres trade deadline news here on It's Always Game Day in Buffalo.
Can you really quickly, I know you did this morning at like 6 a.m. on the radio.
Yeah.
Can you really quickly give me your impressions of the Bills Stadium experience?
Yeah, we will do more of this in the next pod.
Yeah.
I'm blown away, Matt. You and I have been to, I've been to all but 3 NFL stadiums. You've been to the majority of them. I don't know how many you haven't been to. Okay.
Yeah.
When you hear built for Buffalo, and it's not a dome, I think a lot of us think, okay, well, that means they're kind of scaling it back, no frills. Let's just make sure we keep our team here, kind of thing. I think of Pittsburgh. I think of Cleveland. These are like, these stadiums. Okay, they got new stadiums, but they're okay. Holy cow. This will be one of the nicer stadiums in the NFL. I was blown away by the stadium experience. The details of things that they thought of is, I'll get more into detail about that. Just awesome. And I cannot wait. Let's just say it.
Yeah. I'll say I've not done the stadium experience yet. I think I will soon, but I will say the comparison that even they lean on is the Tottenham Stadium. And after going to the Tottenham Stadium in the fall, I was blown away. I was like, that's one of the coolest stadiums I've ever been in. So knowing that it's going to be like that, and I've also had people tell me, they're like, hey, Matt, like, listen, the Tottenham Stadium's beautiful. We think ours is going to be better. And when you hear stuff like that, it's like, oh my, how could it be better? Because that stadium
Wait
was
till you go.
unbelievable. Yeah.
You're gonna okay, speaking of Tottenham, I'd never been to a European soccer stadium until I went to Tottenham. And when I look at the model and I walk through the stadium experience, that's exactly the thing I think about. It's exactly the thing I think about. And with more and better.
That's what I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see, like everybody else, I watched the embedded video almost right when it came out. And I only saw the quick glimpses of the full scale replica, the model that they have. And I know when you go to the stadium experience, you'll see that. So
Yes,
I just the quick glimpses of it, I was like, oh my goodness, this looks unbelievable.
I'll also say this. If you're upset about the size of the bison, stop it. All right. That is not the main attraction. It's nice. Yes, we'd love the biggest bisons in the world. Just wait till you see the stadium. You won't care as much about that. I promise. All right. We want to thank Mike Robier, our producer here, and it's always Game Day in Buffalo Emergency Podcast. Matt, glad we were able to throw this together for everybody. And my guess is the Bills news isn't done, but certainly it's not going to be done in about a week from now when free agency basically opens.
Yeah, we'll do episode next week. Well, I mean, who knows if things are on the current pace that they're on now, we might be doing one before then, but we'll definitely do a free agency kind of primer. And then what do you think? Do you think Monday is the busier day or Wednesday?
Free agency begins on
Wednesday, but legal tampering begins on Monday.
No, we won't hear anything until I think until Tuesday or so. Like the talks will start Monday. We won't really hear anything until Tuesday or so. I think.
Okay.
On most
All right.
guys.
Well, then we'll check in with you guys soon.
People come back to teams because they know that they're positioning themselves. All right. Talk to you next time. And it's always Game Day in Buffalo.